my storming bracket!
What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is obviously my latest catch-up video. This time it is for the month of December. If you're new to the channel, this is where I talk about all the 2022 films that I saw in the month of December. And in this case, I saw 13 movies, so I will be talking about all of them. And of course, non-spoiler fashion, and I won't be talking about them in depth. If you do want to actually hear my thoughts in depth about all these movies, you can follow me on Letterboxd. I'll put the link down below. But guys, you clicked on this video, so you know what to expect. Me talking about all the movies I saw in 2022 in the month of December. So guys, let's get started. So kicking things off for the month of December, I saw All Quiet on the Western Front. This was a movie I was quite excited for because I heard on Twitter a lot of people talking about it, especially the directing. I did see the original several years ago, and I remember thinking the original was okay, although, truth be told, in retrospect, I do respect it quite a bit. But this was a movie that I kind of had on the back burner. Like, I was really looking forward to it, but with all the wedding, stuff that was going on, I wasn't able to see it in late October. So I finally got to see it in the month of December. And long story short, I thought this was rock solid. I quite liked it up to a point. I thought the last 20 minutes or so did kind of drag, but the technical aspects, holy cow. This is in true war movie fashion. This is a technical achievement. Cinematography is great. Absolutely thought the performances were good. Production design, makeup, all that stuff is really good. My only issues are really the last 20 minutes and the score. I just wasn't that big of a fan, to be honest, which is kind of interesting because apparently the Academy is a fan of the score because it is on the short list for, getting nominated for Best Original Score. So what do I know? But in the end, rock solid movie. I definitely respect it. Maybe I'll revisit it down the line, but as it stands, All Quiet on the Western Front, I personally will be giving a... Next up, we have Pinocchio, which is the Robert Zemeckis edition. I should preface that. I like Robert Zemeckis, but I can't lie, I wasn't really looking forward to Pinocchio, which is why I was getting to it now and not many months ago. And for good reason. This was a terrible movie. It actually was so bad that it made my top 10 worst movies of 2022 list, which you can also check down below on my channel. But yeah, not much else to say about this movie. This was a really, really bad movie. And yeah, not a good movie. Anyways, Robert Zemeckis' Pinocchio, I personally will be giving a... Next up, we have Violent Night. This is a movie that stars David Harbour, and it's Die Hard meets Home Alone. And I thought going into it that I would enjoy it, but truthfully, as the movie progressed, I was like, I guess I'm not going to like this. And I know I'm in the minority because I know a lot of people that really dig this movie, and I can respect that. And clearly, critics and audiences online also really dig this movie. I can respect that. For me, I just couldn't help but watch it and say this is like a much, 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 much lesser version of Die Hard. So I was just thinking in my mind, I was like, I could have just been sitting at home watching Die Hard. And truthfully, I kind of wish that I was. Because Violent Night, I just felt like the action really wasn't that interesting. It wasn't engaging. There was like a Hallmark kind of feel to the movie that I just wasn't really on board with. David Harbour's good for sure, but I just wasn't about this movie, unfortunately. And that's why Violent Night was disappointing to me. And I personally will be giving Violent Night a... Next up, we have Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. That's right. The reason why I watched Robert Zemeckis' Pinocchio in the first place was to kind of give my sense an ability of being able to compare and contrast between Zemeckis' and del Toro's. And I'm not going to lie, it was kind of hilarious because del Toro's reimagination, literally 30 seconds in, I was like, this is already better than Robert Zemeckis' rendition. In fact, del Toro's Pinocchio not only is great within the first 30 seconds, the rest of the film is just as great as that first 30 seconds. And holy cow, this was one of my favorite films of the year. I absolutely adored del Toro's Pinocchio. The stop motion, the storytelling, like this is definitely something that when people talk about remakes, this is definitely one of those things that people are going to look towards and be like, oh, so this is how you remake something. You make it your own whilst at the same time having the ideas, the themes and messages that are kind of sticking to the original whilst at the same time making it. So this is what people are going to look at. The score was great. The voice acting, the ending is like a gut punch. It is amazing. This is why I watch films. I absolutely love Del Toro's Pinocchio. I do hope it gets the physical media treatment, specifically 4K, fingers crossed. But as it stands, Del Toro's Pinocchio, I personally highly, highly recommend it, and I'll be giving it a. Next up, we have Emancipation, which is Anton Fuqua's latest movie. I was quite looking forward to this because I do like Will Smith as an actor. And I also think that Fuqua he's very hit or miss, truthfully, but I still like him to an extent. And also, I think the subject matter is interesting. Unfortunately, this movie was quite disappointing, and I didn't like it. I really didn't. In fact, the production design, makeup, all the technical aspects I was on board with, but the actual story just really wasn't that well directed. I felt kind of mixed about the cinematography, and I just thought the pacing was laborious, honestly. Like, it felt longer than it actually was. So, yeah, not a fan of Emancipation. And on my Letterboxd, with people I follow, not many people have seen this movie, so I don't think Will Smith's going to get nominated for Best Actor. And truthfully, I don't think that he should, because although his performance is good, it's nothing really special, just like this movie, unfortunately. So, yeah, Emancipation, disappointing for myself. And I personally will be giving it a. Next up, we have Black Adam. This is a disappointment. Just like Emancipation, it's a movie that I was kind of excited about, but then when Black Adam actually came out a couple months ago, I kind of had cold feet about seeing it in theaters. But then I kept seeing that it was still playing in theaters, so I said, screw it, in December, and I decided that I was going to watch it. And I saw it in theaters, and yeah, this was disappointing. I thought that nobody seemed like they were trying in this movie, which is a shame because I feel like the stepping stones of making a good Black Adam movie were kind of there, but the execution was just falling flat. Trying to do too much at the same time, and it ended up making it so that all the things that it was trying to do didn't succeed. Additionally, I thought that the technical aspects were very dodgy. There were some times where the visual effects were actually pretty good, and then other times it was like, yeah, no, that's not good. Same with the score. The score was all over the place. Sometimes it was like somewhat good, and then other times it was very forgettable and just like background noise. So if you like this movie, I can respect that. But for me, I was pretty disappointed by Black Adam, and I thought that this was more so towards like Wonder Woman 1984 and less towards like Man of Steel and Joker in terms of like DCU. I know people say the Joker's not DCU, but you know what? Screw it. It's still DC. But anyways, Black Adam for me personally, I will be giving it a. Next up, we have Empire Light, which is the latest Sam Mendes film. And if you're new to the channel, just know this. I'm a huge Sam Mendes film fan. I love Skyfall. I love Road to Perdition. I absolutely love American Beauty. As of filming this video, it is my favorite film. So naturally, I was quite looking forward to Empire Light. And I gotta say this, I also really like Olivia Colman, who's the lead star. And additionally, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, I'm also huge fans of, and they did the score. All of that being said, I gotta say, this movie I was kind of disappointed by, but I also feel mixed about it because all those things I just mentioned, the directing, the lead performance, the score, all those things I liked. I just thought overall the execution of the story and the actual pacing, as well as truthfully kind of the character development, were all things that I felt were lacking. This is yet another example of a movie that's trying to do too much, and it ends up being where it falls flat, unfortunately. I felt like the ideas were there. Like, I liked the ideal concept. Like, early on in the movie, I was on board. But as the movie progressed and it tried to do other things, it just didn't really work for myself personally. Now, again, I know that there are definitely big fans of this movie. But for me, like I said, I was very mixed about it. But I can respect the filmmaking. Like, again, great score. Cinematography is really good. I forgot to mention that. Roger Deakins did the cinematography. So, it looks beautiful. But just a movie that overall I felt kind of shallow, empty watching this movie. So, yeah, Empire Light, I personally will be giving a. Next up, I had to especially write this title down. Next up is Bardo, False Chronicles of a Handful of Truths. This is the latest Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu film. That's right, the same director did The Revenant, Birdman. I am a big fan of this director. I've actually ranked this director's work. You can check that out in my director playlist on this channel. But I was curious about Bardo because I wanted to see it in theaters, but you know how Netflix is in terms of it's like, oh, we're not going to show our movies in theaters that are like AMC and Regal, blah 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 blah. But you know, I made sure to watch this day one that it dropped on Netflix, and I gotta say, I didn't love it. I didn't even think it was good. I thought it was okay, but at the same time, the last like 10 minutes were quite memorable and truthfully make me kind of want to revisit this down the line. And I also really, really liked the cinematography. The cinematography utilizes wide angle shots for pretty much everything, like wide angle lens, wide angle shots. I just absolutely loved it. I thought it was such a fresh approach, and it just made for like an expansive viewing experience. I also think that it is quite experimental, which I also appreciated. I just thought that the length was something that was a problem at times, but overall, I would still recommend this movie. Like, for the cinematography alone, it's well acted, and again, the last 10 minutes are kind of a gut punch that's very done well. But yeah, Bardo, I personally will be giving a... Next up, we have Avatar, The Way of Water. This is the depending on which camp you're at, this is either the most anticipated film of 2022 in terms of blockbusters, or it is the least. Again, depending on the camp you're at. Me, I liked the first Avatar. In fact, I did actually get to rewatch, I should say, Avatar, the one that came in 2009, in theaters in September in IMAX 3D, and that was a great experience. And I thought that it was, you know, something that kind of as a prelude to give me preparation for seeing Avatar: The Way of Water in theaters. And I gotta say, Avatar: The Way of the Water, I quite liked it. I know some people, the big criticism is, oh, the story, it's so, you know, generic. And I'm thinking to myself, it's not necessarily generic. It's just quite simple. The plotting is a bit more, you know, in terms of comparing and contrasting the two entries of the Avatar franchise. It has a bit more meat to it. But at the same time, these kind of movies are something where you're going to watch these movies to basically get engulfed by all the world building, the filmmaking on display. It's something that also I feel like the characters are serviceable. Everything in terms of what people are criticizing, I think all those aspects are serviceable. But I was just so impressed by the world building, which is something that I find myself lacking while watching MCU movies. I'm saying that because those are the movies that a lot of the people that are criticizing Avatar: The Way of Water are looking at the MCU movies and saying, yeah, and it's like, yeah, but those movies lack world building and an immersive experience. And that's something that I personally need while watching a movie. And I felt like The Way of Water, it gave me that in spades. It gave me a lot of things that I didn't think that I needed, but sure enough, after watching, I'm like, yeah, I needed that. I just was so engulfed by the world. I absolutely loved the score, loved the action scenes. The action scenes actually use a different FPCS. It uses 48 frames per second instead of 24, which going into it, I kind of knew that that was something that was going to be there, but actually seeing it, I was like, okay, that worked. But overall, if you're on the camp of like hating on Avatar: The Way of Water going into it, I don't think this movie is going to change your mind. But if you go in with open mind and, you know, just want something that is a world building feat that also has great filmmaking and it is entertaining, I say check out Avatar: The Way of Water. Me personally, looking forward to seeing it a second time in theaters, and I personally will be giving it a... Next up, we have The Whale, which is Darren Aronofsky's latest film. I am a huge fan of Darren Aronofsky. Just going to say right off the bat, in my opinion, he has yet to make a bad movie. All of his movies, I think, are good to masterpieces. That's just me personally. And The Whale, I have to say, is near masterful. I think that this movie was fantastic. Brendan Fraser gives a performance for the ages. I absolutely fell in love with this performance. As soon as the movie began, I knew I was in for something special. Very well shot. What's great about this movie is that it's one setting, but you never feel like, oh my goodness, like, just focus on somewhere else other than this area. No, you never feel that. You're always, always, always in the lead character's shoes, and you always are in on them trying to build this one setting to get into the shoes of the lead character and understanding that this is his world. So I think that the world building was quite good. The score is really, really good, especially during the last scene. All the performances, including the supporting cast, are really, really good. The messages, the themes, they all stick the landing for me personally. I understand why some people might not like this movie, but me, I was all on board. I found myself really being able to relate to the lead character. And The Whale, it's easily one of my favorite films of 2022, and I personally will be giving it a. Next up, we have Decision to Leave. Decision to Leave is the latest Park Chan-wook film. The same director that gave us Old Boy, The Handmaiden, two of my favorite films of all time. I wanted to see this so bad in theaters. But here's the thing. This movie came out the same week that I got married. So obviously I couldn't watch it that week, especially because I had my honeymoon. And I said to myself, yeah, well, usually independent films are in theaters for 2 weeks. Well, I get back from the honeymoon, this isn't in theaters anymore. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. And after watching this on Mubi, which I did a free trial for it, after watching this, I have to say this was fantastic. This is a masterpiece. This is something you need to go into knowing as little as possible. Other than the filmmaking on screen, I can't gush enough about. The combination of cinematography, editing, the transitions of the two, holy cow. And also the story, it just really takes you through all these different emotions. And I was all for it. I can't wait to rewatch this film already. And I have to say, Decision to Leave, it's a masterpiece. I absolutely adore this movie, and I would highly recommend you check this movie out. Do not sleep on it. Do not. Check it out ASAP. Decision to Leave, I personally will be giving a. Next up, we have Babylon, which is the latest Damien Chazelle film. Same director that gave us First Man, La La Land, Whiplash, in my opinion. 3 for 3 in my book. And here, Babylon, he's 4 for 4 now in my book. This is a movie that I can see why a lot of people are kind of mixed about in terms of critics and audiences. But for me, I liked the swing of the fence that Chazelle did. It's a very ambitious movie. It combines Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Singing in the Rain, and of course, Boogie Nights. To a fault, I will say with Boogie Nights, that is definitely a fault because Boogie Nights is one of my favorite movies of all time. And here, Babylon takes not only the structure of Boogie Nights, but certain scenes it literally lifts verbatim. Like there's a scene with Alfred Molina in Boogie Nights, and here what they do is they, instead of having Alfred Molina, they had Tobey Maguire in a very similar scene. You'll know it when you see it, but nonetheless, despite that kind of being a distraction, I still thought that Babylon was a good movie. I really liked it. I thought that the swing of the fence, the ambitious nature of Chazelle was something that I greatly appreciated. And that montage sequence at the end, it's either going to make or break this film for you. So I would definitely recommend you check out Babylon. No question about it. For me, Babylon, I personally will be giving a. Next up, the last movie I saw of December 2022 is, of course, White Noise, which is the latest Noah Baumbach movie. Same director that gave us Marriage Story, which I really liked. That was one of my favorite movies of 2019. So naturally, I was excited for this movie. And I gotta say, I hate saying this, but I'm gonna use the title. This movie was white noise for myself. Watching it, I had a very difficult time focusing on the characters and everything that was going on. I loved the cinematography, I loved the acting, but I just had such a difficult time gripping the story, the plotting. It just was something that wasn't really that engaging, even though everything that's it's depicting are things that I find fascinating. Like how you're constantly trying to figure out with how to deal with something. Like the chemical spill is definitely a stand-in for the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. And in some ways, I thought that was fascinating, but I just felt like the execution was just kind of like, eh. Like, after watching this movie, I was like, I feel nothing. That's why my review on Letterboxd is so short, because I'm like, I felt nothing watching this movie. And I hate that feeling. I hate that this kind of director that I greatly appreciated, that I felt nothing towards his work. But, again, I'm still going to give it a passing rating because, again, it's very well acted and it's well shot, but I felt empty watching it. And for me, White Noise, I personally will be giving a. All right, that is my December 2022 movies catch-up video. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate your guys' support. with these. You guys are the best. And if you haven't done so already, don't forget the subscription, notification bell. Follow me on Letterboxd, definitely. And I will catch you guys later.